Hello humans! Today I wanted to talk about this guy right here, which I picked up on a fairly recent trip to House of Knives. This is a Vosteed racoon with the Bowie blade style. I think they have other blade styles. I don't know. I saw this in person and I liked it, so... Alright, let's get in there. Or just don't open nicely, even though I made it. Okay, well, let's see if you work better if I cut this side. God damn it. Alright, immediate thoughts. The packaging is freaking fighting me. Okay, fine. I guess I'm just gonna tear this up because it's... Make a box that opens. Plain cardboard, good. Burn it, recycle it, do whatever you do with it. That part I have no complaint with. I don't know why it didn't open, but it didn't. Alright, and then we have this, which is also just a plain cardboard tray. And again, burn it, recycle it, do whatever you do with it. It was slightly too small for whatever this is. We have a Vosteed card that details their warranty, 30-day full money-back guarantee, return and replacement services. I'm assuming that's limited, but we'll see. Funky little Vosteed card. Oh, I hate... Why? The hell? This is like... almost like a woven fiber plastic coated texture. I hate this. Keep your knife clean and lubricated, immediately dry. Make sure to lubricate it first, oil your knife, sharpen your knife correctly. Okay, that's not super interesting. Warranty information, okay. Yeah, it rips like normal paper, but this feels awful. I'm going to assume I can recycle that. I don't know, check your local area's rules. We have a Vosteed microfiber cloth. This is pretty nice microfiber cloth, okay. We have our Vosteed Business Raccoon sticker. This is actually a really cute sticker. Okay, that's kind of cool. Go over into the sticker corner while I figure out what to do with my stickers, which I still... Anyway, we have apparently snacks. Yeah, we have snacks. Cool. I can't recycle that in my local area. Some places I think you can. Then we have this little pouch, inside of which... we have the bag the knife is supposed to be in. I did get the floor model. I got the last one that they had, so I'm not super surprised it's not in this bag, but you do get a dog poo bag, which is nice. And the knife itself. I don't know what to do. And the knife itself. So, this looks like a button lock. I love button locks. I have for a very long time said that a button lock is like my second favorite type of lock. However, this is not a button lock. Much more excitingly, this is a top liner lock, which is most likely, very quickly going to become my second favorite type of lock over the button lock. Nothing is going to beat the back lock and back lock variants, but wow, that's really nice actually. Alright, this is a very small thing. Does not matter in the grand scheme of things at all, but I don't like it when the nicely finished side, like the decorative side of the pivot, is on the non-show side scale. It does not make a difference in the grand scheme of things, but I just think that this looks so much better. So there's a very good chance I'm going to flip this around. The blade has a gray coating on it. I don't think anything actually said what the coating is, so I'm going to have to look up what it is. We have a 14C28N blade. Not a very huge blade. We have got a good finger choil, though, for getting that finger in that sort of forward position. And we have the Bowie blade style. I love a Bowie blade. Like, I am all over Bowie blades. It just rockets out, so that's really nice. I love a Bowie blade style. I'm big into clip points, so obviously I had to jump on this. I also really do appreciate the dual tone swedge. Sort of the flat swedge for the top section, and then a secondary swedge with an actual proper stop and regrind. for the swedge portion of the clip point. That's super duper cool. I don't think it'll make that big of a difference when it comes to like drag reduction in a cut, but aesthetically, I think that that is really well done. Light gray G10, the pop of blue. Something I will say I think that Vosteed does extremely, extremely well is sort of color. They play with color in a really, really nice way with their knives, which I hugely appreciate. Just the pop of blue, the lighter gray of the handle scales, and then the darker gray of the blade just comes out looking really, really good. It's obviously running on bearings. Oh yeah, no, the pop that you get from a backliner lock, or compression lock, but Spyderco owns that name, is really nice. We have a lanyard hole in the back here, not quite deep carry, or not quite super deep carry pocket clip, which I actually really like for a work knife. It just makes it a little easier to grab in and out of the pocket, which I appreciate. It's a fairly light knife, but honestly, I'm really excited for it. We've got a filler plate with the reversible clip, which I like the look of a filler plate. I know not everybody does, but I actually think this is a really cool opportunity for like other little bits and pieces. I think it would have been really cool, not holding it against the company for not doing this, but I think it would have been really cool if this was like an anodized piece of aluminum with the blue anodization from the pocket, or from the thumb studs. That would be really cool. Thumb studs are okay, I don't feel any kind of way about them. Definitely not my favorite type, but you know what, they're fine, they're comfortable enough. We have a little bit of jimping back here. The jimping is pretty slick. I'm not getting a lot of positive traction off of it. It's not horrible, and it definitely does tell me that I'm reaching like the end of the thumb section for the blade, because back up here, this is really thin. But back here, it's nice. So it does give me that little bit of indication, which I do enjoy. Got a bit, not an amazing, but a little bit of a choil section, so that's nice. And the button for the top liner lock. You know, it's got the hatching on it, which is nice. It's comfortable. It's easy to press. We do have a centered blade, which is good. Edge feels perfect all the way along. Let's see, what do I have for straight edge? I have really nothing on hand that's straight. Everything oh, here we go. Boxer razor blades. And yeah, we have what appears to be a pretty much, not quite, but very close to full height flat grind. Which makes a lot of sense. I'm excited. Alright. Very consistent edge. Let's see how it does on this little bit of a paper cut. Oh yeah. That's really nice. I'm not feeling any, like, there's a little bit of more texturing than a polished blade, but I'm not getting any particular amount of sort of drag from the coating, which is really nice. Sometimes you get that. This does have, like, it makes a little bit of noise, but I'm not getting any, like, feel from which is really nice. Let's do our puncture test. I think this will puncture pretty well. Clip point blades do generally puncture really well. And this one here comes out being pretty damn thin behind the edge between the two swedges and just the grind, so. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that sinks in there really nice. Pull that out. Line it up. Yeah. It does thrust fairly easily. Gets through the 2 inches of foam with no problem, and it's not getting stuck at all, which is good. Let's do our rubber cut test. I think this is where I'm going to get like the best idea of what I think of this coating. I don't really know what this coating is, but I feel like if anything's going to fuck up this cut test, it's going to be that coating. So, let's see. Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, pretty much what I would expect. It's definitely thin behind the edge. Not getting any shouldering, which again is pretty much what I would expect. So that actually is really, really pleasant. No problem whatsoever there. I will say, despite the fact that I'm not feeling it in any of the cuts, Shmoo does seem to be sticking to the coating a little bit more. I don't know what the coating is off the top of my head. I think I've already mentioned that, but I am going to know that for the second part of this video. Which, I mean, you're here 10 minutes in, so you know about the second part by now, hopefully. But, yeah, no. Super, super smooth. Feels super, super good. Very easy to open. Very satisfying sound. These top liner locks, man, they're nice. I'm going to carry this on and on for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to get back to you with my full thoughts now. And we are back. So I've been playing with this guy on and off for close to a month now, actually. And I have to say, I am really impressed overall with this. So some quick stats, because I don't think I had them in the first part. This thing sells at House of Knives for 107 Canadian dollars, which is just a touch higher than what I consider to be a budget knife. Like, I consider anything under 100 Canadian dollars to be a budget knife. So this is literally just on the edge of being above it, unfortunately. You could probably shop around at other retailers, and there are versions of the racoon, not the top liner lock version, but there are, most versions of the racoon actually are under that. But for this version specifically, it is ever so slightly over. 14C28 and blade steel. Vosteed advertises this as being between 58 to 60 HRC. If I had to put money on it, I would actually say this one here in particular is on the upper edge of that range, just because I found the blade to be a little bit brittle at the absolute apex. I did sharpen it a couple of times, and I'll get into that in a second. PVD blade coating in this, they call it Destroyer Gray. I'm assuming that's Battleship Destroyer, which, whatever. Anodized, I'm going to guess they're aluminum pivot or thumb studs. You can see the anodization is wearing off ever so slightly, which kind of tracks. Super, super comfortable knife. So like I said, I've been using this for a whole bunch of stuff. This choil area, despite the fact that this is a straight sort of ramp into the blade, the choil is definitely enough, as long as you're kind of pulling back on it like a trigger, to get right up behind that edge for fine woodworking tasks, or for like most things. This is a very comfortable ergonomic position. My pinky, so I get 3 fingers in this first section very easily, and then my pinky is on this sort of ramp, backwards ramp. Some people don't love that. I don't actually mind it one way or another, and then once I'm choked up, I am comfortably in the primary area. This is a very easy to control knife. I've had absolutely no problems with controlling it, absolutely no problems with manipulating it. The full-length swedge I don't think provides very much in terms of like cutting benefit, but it is kind of cool, and it is definitely kind of useful. Not useful. It is kind of unique. Like, it's aesthetic. It's pretty. I don't think it does anything useful, but I do think it is very neat. Puncturing, this thing punctures beautifully as you'd kind of expect from a Bowie. It's very thin behind the tip. So, some things that are just inherent to top liner locks, and there are ways around this that I will discuss in just a second. But in general, top liner locks, you have a much bigger cutout than you would with like a traditional button lock. So here, as you can see on this Civivi Chevalier, there's basically no extra cutout space for the lock, whereas with the top liner lock on the racoon, there is a decent amount. And the reason behind this is because the button itself actually needs to swing. It's on essentially a liner lock. That's why they call it the top liner lock, which means it has to come out at an angle, which means that it needs to be able to rotate a certain amount. Now, I do believe that there would be a way around this. This is severely over-engineered for a knife at this price point. This would be something more in like the $500 price point. But if you had a little bit of a thicker lock bar, you could actually fit a little hinge in there, and then you could have your button essentially running hinged, so it always remains straight out the pivot, even as you push in. I do think that that would be severely over-engineered. It'd be really cool to see one of these knife companies do it, just because I don't think anybody has done it, but I do also think that it is severely over-engineered and could lead to other problems potentially. It's just a thought that I had whilst carrying this. But yeah, super duper comfortable to use, super duper easy to flick open. The G10 handle is quite comfortable. There's a little bit of texturing. I didn't particularly notice it. The jimping back here, I did notice a decent amount. It was actually really good at providing traction, but far from, strictly speaking, necessary. Pocket clip is high enough to get something fully into my pocket, but also low enough to where it's easy to grab with gloves, which I really do appreciate. I think that is important on a work knife especially. Apologies for my cat. Yeah, so I do think that it is very, very suitable for a work knife, especially just to be able to grab it with gloves on. So I do think that is quite important. However, is one thing about this knife that I haven't played with because I wanted to do it on camera. I want to switch the pivot over. So we're going to disassemble this knife and then we're going to reinstall the pivot. Oh, don't think I was supposed to do that. And then we're just going to reinstall the pivot backwards. So this should be pretty easy to take apart. I imagine it is going to be as simple as, yeah, it should literally be 2 screws. So, and then centering and stuff, which is whatever. I'm going to fully disassemble it just so I can take a closer look at how that internal liner lock thing. Oh, I'm glad I decided to do that. That's a T6. Yeah, I know. It's very annoying. Alright, so we're going to have nested liners in here, probably both sides. There we are. Okay, and I don't think there's anything else that should be holding this in place. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, I'm glad I decided to disassemble this on camera. This is going to prove to be more annoying than I expected. So we have to remove this filler tab because the filler tab screws into the internal liners. Okay, now we can take the scale off and we can get a closer look. Oh, that was connected to the magnet. And we can get a closer look at this inside mechanism. As you can see, nested milled out liner that goes pretty much the full length. The blade actually does fit in there very ergonomically. We'll get to size comparisons once I've reassembled the knife, but you can actually see that they are using the full length of these handles to fit that blade. And, oh, it needs a clean, whatever. As we can see while we're in here, actually, you can see, I'll hold this together. This is the lock bar. It interfaces, oh, we'll just take this right off. Please excuse, I'm assuming those are mostly fiberglass shavings. As we can see, the liner lock slots in, ooh, ceramic ball bearing, nice. It slides into the back and interfaces back here, which means that in order to get this lock to fail, you actually need to overcome this reinforcement pin as well, or get this particular piece to twist, which would be very, very difficult. And then this is our button from the outside. Push it, gets out of the way of the blade, and the blade closes and slots in at the bottom. Very nice. All right. So, okay. All right. Cannot see this being a problem, but let's find it out. Oh. Okay. So, the way this is going to work, we're functionally just going to build the knife as though it were a left-handed variant rather than a right-handed variant. That goes there. Super duper. I had an absolutely wonderful time with this knife the whole time that I was using it. Like I said, the blade steel was a little bit more on the brittle side. I was pushing it a little bit to find out, because once I realized that because 14C28N is a steel that's going to do well at any of the Rockwell harnesses that they advertise, but I am always curious to see where exactly the blades and stuff like that I get fit. So I do like to know these things. And through testing, I would imagine it would be much closer to that 60. It just did feel a little bit more brittle. In particular, when I was like cutting through, how to say, more trying material, stuff that had like lots of internal stresses and stuff like that, it did definitely have preferences for how it was going to behave and stuff like that. And it did, I touched it up more than once. I didn't do a full regrind sharpening because it never needed it, but every time it would end up becoming very, very toothy after an extended period of use, which is why I imagine that it was on that higher end. So now we just need all of the internal stuff to line up. Okay. Oh no, I've got a T6 and I need a T8. See, just, oh, damn it. Alright. This is why all of the hardware should just be one thing, right? Like, if everything's a T8, I don't need to switch between, and it's not a huge deal to switch between your bits when you're reassembling or anything like that. Like, it really is not world-ending. It's just, it would be much, much nicer if things worked the way that they, if everything was just the same, it would be much, much easier to deal with. Especially if you are doing something dumb like this, where it doesn't necessarily want you to do it the way that I am doing it. Why are you fighting me? Oh, because my pivot's misaligned. Okay, very cool. So obviously it is a D-shaped barrel, but it's only D-shaped on one side, which means I do need to line it up before I try to put this on. Okay. So I'm probably making this look much harder to do than it actually is. A part of that is because I am working with things more directly in front of me and I'm not like overlooking them like I typically would be. But this is not necessarily an easy knife to reassemble. This also is not this difficult to reassemble. This is clearly not designed to have the pivot put back in backwards. I'm just doing that because my personal preference would have the pivot facing the other direction. Why? Okay. Lift this up, hopefully for the last fucking time. So the only similarly sort of designed knives that I've disassembled before has obviously been my Spyderco Para 3, because that is also a top liner locking knife, and is kind of the only fair comparison that I have in terms of like action and stuff like that. And I will say I do actually prefer the action on this. I think that in terms of like tuning and detent, and it could just be like blade weight or something like that, I do not have enough of a sample size to be able to tell, but there is something about this that I do very much prefer to the Spyderco Para 3. And it could just be a matter of like, I do actually like thumb studs. I do definitely prefer thumb studs to the alternative. Why are you fighting me now? Okay, where are you misaligned? Okay, it's fitting in the bottom. It's not fitting somewhere up here. Probably, yeah. Okay, that right there should... Why are you fighting me this much? Wow, this is... Do I have to do something... Okay. That's in there good. That's in there good. That is all fine. Alright. Lining up from the front to the back this time. Let's see if that makes a damn difference. Doesn't seem to... Blade is swinging wildly. That's not at all helpful. Why are you like this? Is it legit? Oh, there we are. Alright. Fucking... Alright. I don't know why. Actually, I do know why. A big part of the reason why this is such a pain boils down to the fact entirely that this pivot is... The liners are only D-shaped on one side, despite the fact that the D-shaped sleeve needs to fit through both of them, which means more than one thing. One of the things that it means is that this is very uncomfortable to do because you have to line up the pivot whilst you're reassembling. Other thing is, and I imagine this is just a matter of, oh, there it is. Don't lose your screws. In reality, I should have like a little plastic tray or something here to help out with that, but I do not. So instead, I am figuring it the hell out myself. Yeah, so one of the reasons why this is turning out to be such a pain is just because the pivot is only, or the liners are only cut out for the D-shaped pivot on one side. This is because you're not supposed to do what I am doing, but I do think that that is a bit of a regrettable choice. All right, it's centered. Now it's off-centered. Tighten slightly. Okay, we're centered again. Still centered. All right, real nice. I'm gonna, after camera, I'm gonna take that apart and put a little Loctite in there. But, okay, so T8 for the pivot, T6 for the body screws. You have to take the pocket clip and or liner bar out to disassemble, which is just kind of annoying. But I did get to show off how it works and everything like that. So overall a win. That took way longer than I wanted it to. All right, let's do some size comparisons real quick. Here it is next to the, oh, dropped my Civivi Chevalier. This is going well. Here it is next to the Civivi Chevalier and the Wee Knives Banter. As you can see, it is slightly smaller than the Chevalier and a good deal bigger than the Banter, which does put it comfortably into what I consider to be a medium-sized knife. Should carry the Banter more. Here it is next to a Buck 110 and a Zippo lighter. As you can see, it is a good deal smaller than the Buck 110. Now closed. It is slightly slimmer than the Buck 110, but not by that much. I actually think this is probably going to be as thick, if not slightly thicker, than the Zippo. Yeah, it is actually thicker than the Zippo, as you can see. Which makes sense. It is a hand-feeling grip. It is a very comfortable grip, generally speaking. Largely because even when you're on, it's not such an aggressive rear ramp that you're like slipping off the end of it. And it does provide really good, like the swooping section here makes it really feel like it's locking into your hand, which is really, really good for those more extended cutting sessions. And it's just so easy to hold. Like, even I can get my finger up here nice and easy for doing draw cuts or cutting, processing cardboard, stuff like that at work, which is super, super nice. Like, this is, generally speaking, a knife where the ergonomics were very heavily considered. The Bowie knife section is super cool. It looks really good. That PVD coating will wear away over time. I didn't have any significant wearage on it. But again, right, like I only had this from my rotation for a couple of weeks, so if this does become your one knife option, you're probably going to see some. The pivot, or the pocket, nope. The thumb studs, my apologies, the thumb studs are showing the most significant wear on this knife just generally. Also, doesn't it just look so much better with the toolless side of the pivot on the show side scale? Like, if you're left-handed, obviously, you'd want it on the side that you show more, the left-handed side, but on the right, as a righty, I just think this looks so much better. Like, this isn't an ugly pivot by any means, but just clean, nice and clean. Detail where you want your details. But yeah, no, for 107 bucks, I do think this is a highly recommendable knife. Blade stock thickness. That took way too long to disassemble. $116, so about 115 thousandths. And we're not going to bother with fractions. 295 or 2.95 millimeters. which sounds about right. Yeah. It is ever so slightly above what I consider to be a budget knife, but honestly, even as what I consider to be like an upgraded knife, this is really, really good. The action is phenomenal. The lock is extremely strong. Blade steel is right about what you'd expect. 14C28N fits very comfortably into that range. It's very ergonomic. You get a good amount of blade. How much blade do you get? I think on their website they say 3 1/4. So from the front of the scale, yeah, it's about 3 1/4, which means from the start of the edge, it is about 2 7/8. So it probably comes out to exactly 3 inches of cutting edge with the belly there, which makes sense. Like, this is very, very suitably sized knife, very comfortable for EDC. You have the choil. There are multiple color options and stuff like that, of course, but yeah, overall, big fan of this thing. And it has convinced me quite a bit on those top liner locks. I'm not going to say I wasn't convinced beforehand, because the Spyderco PM3 is a very good knife, but I do think that this covers the idea significantly better, does a much better job with it. So I would pick one of these up. There's probably upgraded versions that come out every so often with better blade steels. If you're looking at like a one knife option, I'd probably go for one of those, just because, like I said, this was a little chippy. I didn't push it super, super hard, but cutting through like even just wood and stuff like that for when I was doing whittling and carving and stuff, I did notice that it became kind of toothy by the end of it. So it was like microchipping. Could just be this one here is harder than most of them. I don't know, but I would go for an upgraded blade steel that they have a little bit more interest in getting exactly right. But yeah, no, overall, super, super happy with this. It's a really nice knife. I'd pick one up. Stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.